Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central here in Kent, Ohio. Yes, we're ready for a good story today. We got a good one for you today. Let's see what we have here for a proverb. Proverb for today is, someone else's legs do you no good in traveling. Imagine that. Somebody else's legs ain't gonna do you no good in traveling. And that's a proverb from Nigeria, although they probably say it a little differently, but that's what it means. And the poem for today is simply called Lady's Song. Now, this is one I've never heard before by Gil Scott-Heron, so I don't know if he put it on an album or not, but let's see how it sounds a cappella. Oops, wait a minute. I almost forgot. Got to put this on here. Yep, sometimes I need these glasses. These letters are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. There you go. All right, here we go. Now, where are we at? Okay. To say any words you ain't feeling don't seem to be what she needs. She's been hurt a lot and put down a lot, but she don't really need your sympathy because her touch is soft and her eyes are smiling. Those small-time people try and put her down. She ain't done nobody wrong. The love she has is going to keep her strong. It seems like long after love has abandoned you and me, you might see her running to work in the morning. Remember, there's a whole lot on her mind. If you've got nothing to say, why not let her go on her way? Because, brother, everybody just ain't got the time. Everybody just ain't got the time. Now, truer words have never been spoken. Everybody just ain't got the time. If you ain't got nothing to say, why say it at all? Oh, whoops. Put that the wrong way. That should go over here. All right, now, as you can see here on the cover of this book right here, I don't know if y'all can see that good. Okay, this is a book about African-American women of the Old West by a woman by the name of Trisha Martineau Wagner. Okay, I don't know much about her. I had to learn something about her, but she's written a couple books on the Oregon Trail and on the Underground Railroad, that I can tell you. And I believe she may be even related to one of the people in this book, but that's the part I want to find out. That's the mystery part. But you see the picture that she put here on the front cover? That is a picture, it's kind of fuzzy on this, from this angle here, a picture of Mary Stagecoach Fields, and she is our woman of the day, maybe of the week. Okay, because we're starting our week off with the story of Mary Stagecoach Fields. And, you know, I talk about people that, you know, think their dogs are part of their family and, you know, think their dogs are like people and take them to doctors all the time and stuff like that. But lo and behold, and then take portrait pictures with them in studios and they bring their dog. But here you go with Mary Stagecoach Fields way back in the 1890s, early 20th century, somewhere around there. Maybe even earlier than that. But here she is in a portrait with her dog. So what can I say? I guess people have been thinking about their dogs in a kindly way for quite some time. Meanwhile, let's move on with her story. Mary Fields, the title of this piece is A Force to be Dealt With. The rough and ready frontier men who frequented the saloons in Cascade, Montana in the early 1900s thought they'd seen it all, but they were mistaken. One minute they were busy playing cards and drinking shots of whiskey, and the next their game was interrupted without warning. Mary Fields pushed back her chair and angrily threw her hand across the table. She bit down hard on the cigar hanging from the side of her mouth, her eyes slowly following a figure passing by the window of her favorite drinking establishment. As Mary stood up, her seething temper rose even higher. The lively bar music came to a halt as the 6-foot-tall, 200-pound, 70-something-year-old Negro laundress stomped out of the Silver Dollar Saloon. She had apparently recognized somebody walking by the window and determinedly went out after him, catching up with the man who had skipped town without paying her his $2 laundry bill. She spun him around and punched him with her iron fist. Wiping her hands on her apron, she went back into the saloon and declared that the gentleman's bill was now paid in full. The music resumed, as did the card game, to the howls of laughter from the other players, who shook their heads at the stupidity of anyone who messed with Mary Fields. Now, you would think that would be a high point in a story about a woman, but I guess it ain't, because she put it right at the beginning of the story. So let's see where she goes from here. Who would go up against the only woman granted permission by Mayor D.W. Bill Monroe to drink in Cascade saloons, a privilege reserved otherwise solely for men? Anybody foolish enough to take advantage of this whiskey-drinking, cigar-smoking, gun-toting man of a woman clearly deserved whatever he got. Mary Fields was born a slave on a plantation in Hickman County, Tennessee, around 1832. Her sheer size and contentious nature had most assuredly set her apart at an early age. Fully capable of doing a man's work, she likely spent a great deal of time working alongside the males. This may have played a part in her fiercely indomitable spirit and fearlessness. These strong personality traits defined who she was and how she lived. Mary Fields' life is a study in contrast, in opposites attracted, and in opposing forces. All right, Brother Kwaku. And in opposing forces colliding, all of which no doubt contribute to the contradictory accounts of a woman who became a legend, not in her own mind, but in her own time. There are conflicting versions of the story of Mary's early years. It's not known exactly how she became acquainted with the young woman who would change the course of her life, Miss Sarah Teresa Dunn, later to become Mother Mary Amadeus, a Roman Catholic Ursuline nun. The two women, separated in age by 14 years, were as different as night and day. Miss Dunn was born on 2nd, 1846, in none other than Akron, Ohio. Bringing it on home, Mary Fields never knew her own birth date and estimated the year to be 1832. Sarah Dunn had a fair complexion and blonde hair and blue eyes and was descended from a wealthy Irish family. Mary was dark-skinned with black hair and dark eyes, the child of slave parents. Sarah was frail and delicate. Mary was strong and sturdy. Sarah was educated early in life. Mary became literate only years later. Sarah was refined and patient. Mary was rough and quick. I believe the next word would be to anger. Yep, quick-tempered. But the two seemed to have an affinity for each other that would last a lifetime. Some accounts say that Mary Fields worked for the Dunn family when Sarah was a child, but others say that the Dunns never owned slaves. Mary Fields may have first met Sarah Dunn while Mary was a servant for Franklin Warner, a Tennessee plantation owner and friend of the Dunns. At some point, their paths did cross, but surely neither woman realized the bond that would develop between them. After the passage of the 13th Amendment, which formally freed the slaves in 1865, Mary Fields found herself a free woman at the age of about 33 years old. 5 years later, she had found employment. Okay, now she found employment emptying out chamber pots on the Robert E. Lee. Now, I don't know where you would empty those chamber pots except to take them to the side of the boat and dump them over the side of the boat and hope you don't get any on the boat. But I'm imagining that's what she did. Maybe she took it over the back end of the boat. I don't know where she dumped them chamber pots with it. That is the question. I take it y'all know what a chamber pot is. For those of y'all who don't, that's where people at night, you couldn't get to the bathroom. You had the chamber pot under your bed. Because, people didn't have, we didn't have the flushing toilets and things like that at the time. So she was on the Robert E. Lee, a prominent steamboat running on the Mississippi River. Mary loved to tell the story of being a part of the renowned race. All right, Ronnie, I see you there. Of the renowned race between two of the great steamboats of the time, the Robert E. Lee and the steamboat Natchez. The 3-day race from New Orleans to St. Louis, held June 30th to July 2nd, 1870, was of national interest, with towns telegraphing the race times as the steamships raced up the Mississippi at an average of 14 miles per hour. White steam reportedly spouted from the pipes and black steam from the chimneys as every rivet in the boilers were strained. Sparks filled the sky as the coal-fueled Natchez took on the wood-fueled Lee. Mary relayed how anything and everything was thrown into the fire to produce enough steam to win. Resin, bacon, even whole sides of ham. It's not hard to envision Mary stoking the fires herself and jubilantly celebrating her ship's well-earned victory over the Natchez in just 3 days, 18 hours, and 14 minutes, a full 6 hours and 36 minutes ahead of the Natchez. It may have been while on the Robert E. Lee that Mary Fields became reacquainted with Miss Sarah Dunn's older brother, who was by then Judge Edmund Dunn. Mary Fields became employed as a confidential servant for Judge and Mrs. Dunn for several years. Both Judge Dunn and his wife had sisters who had become Ursuline nuns. They lived at the Ursuline Catholic Convent in Toledo, Ohio, where Miss Sarah Dunn and Miss Mary Raphael Warner were known as Sister Mary Amadeus and Sister Annunciation, respectively. This knowledge may have influenced Mary's decision to make her way to Toledo eventually. Perhaps Mary Fields was seeking out the only family she felt she had when looking for her next employment situation. Fortunately, the good sisters at the Ursuline Convent of the Sacred Heart, located on Cherry and Erie Streets in Toledo, took Mary in. There she dedicated herself to the Ursuline sisters from the late 1870s to the mid-1880s. She was given a room on the first floor of the convent and had her own kneeler at the back of the chapel. Right, at the back of the chapel. Black Mary, as she was called, always dressed in black, wearing a black apron over her black dress, some say over man's pants, and donning a black skull cap. Along with her extraordinary height and great bearing, this gave her a rather imposing appearance, and especially with a cigar dangling from the crook of her mouth. Mary planted the garden, tended the cloister courtyard, and took great pride in keeping up the grounds. She kept a watchful eye on the school children at the convent to see that no one disturbed her well-manicured lawn. Hello. The schoolgirls were said to be frightened of Black Mary's gruff manner and quick temper. As one nun remarked, God help anyone who walked on the lawn after Mary had cut it. Mary Fields was a hard worker, and she was proud of being largely self-sufficient. Her wages were $50 per year, out of which she paid for all of her incidental expenses, such as her traveling bag, musical instruments, and medical prescriptions. What kind of medicine was she taking way back then? All right, well, Uh, Obviously, we're not going to be able to finish Mary Stagecoach Fields' story today. We're going to have to take at least, we should be able to finish it tomorrow. So we'll take at least one more day and we'll finish up the story of Mary Stagecoach Fields. And I really had a hard time deciding whether or not to read her story today or not, because she went in the category of a frontier woman, a pioneer frontier woman, or just a woman of the West. But I decided to put her in as just a woman of the West because we're going to do a whole thing on explorers, etc. Okay, but Mary she wasn't really that involved in exploration, but she did move to Montana. That's about exploration enough for me because I ain't moving there. But so much for that. Meanwhile, you know who this is? This is Doc Ock at noon and 9, bringing you the latest and the greatest from the American West. Stories that you may have never heard, some of which you might have heard, but maybe you didn't get all the details. So we're just trying to fill in some of those gaps that exist in the genre that's called Black history. Okay, in that study of Black history, we want to just fill in some of those missing details. Okay, things that we never heard, because nobody's made a movie, as far as I know yet, with Mary Stagecoach Fields in it. But certainly, someone like her, she deserves a movie for real. I don't know who played the role, probably Queen Latifah, but she definitely deserves a movie. So if any of y'all out there and you see Queen Latifah, tell her about Mary Stagecoach Fields. She'd probably like a role like that. You know how she is. But in the meanwhile, we're going to move on and groove on. And we'll be black tonight, 9 o'clock for the children's version, which many of you may find just as interesting, if not more interesting than the adult version. You never know. So peace out until then. We'll see you next time with a grin. Remember, you can send those donations to kkhemet@gmail.com via PayPal. That seems to be the best way to do it at this point in time. Go ahead and drop something on us. You know, we're in the midst of our fall fundraising campaign. We're calling it 2020. We're trying to raise 20,000 by September 20th, 2020. So we're calling this our 2020 campaign. In the meanwhile, we're out. We'll see y'all next time. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9 signing off.